She stood at the edge of the porch, shivering under the weak glow of the flickering streetlight. The wind tugged at her thin jacket, and the rain had already soaked through her shoes. Her voice barely rose above a whisper as she looked up at the man who had just opened the door. "I have nowhere to sleep," she said, her eyes red but empty, as if they had run out of tears long ago. Adam froze for a moment. He wasn't expecting visitors, especially not a stranger with trembling hands and soaked hair standing on his doorstep in the middle of a freezing Toronto night. It was past midnight, and he had just finished a long shift at the hospital where he worked as a nurse. Exhausted, he could have shut the door and chalked it up to someone else's problem. But he didn't. Instead, he looked at her, really looked. She couldn't have been more than 20, maybe even younger. Her lips were blue from the cold. Her hands clutched each other as if it were the only thing keeping her standing. Something about her reminded him of his younger sister, the one he lost 3 winters ago to the very streets this girl was trying to survive on. "Come in," he said, stepping aside. She hesitated, unsure, as if kindness came with a price she couldn't afford. But her legs gave in before her doubt did, and she crossed the threshold slowly, like she was afraid the warmth might disappear at any moment. Adam handed her a towel and a blanket, then turned on the heater. "Sit by this. I'll make some tea." She didn't say much. Her name was Mia. She had been kicked out of her aunt's place after a family argument turned violent. Her mom had passed away 2 years ago. Her father had never been in the picture, and the few friends she had were either in trouble or just didn't pick up the phone anymore. "I've been sleeping on buses," she said quietly, eyes fixed on the steam rising from the teacup. "But they kick you off at 2 a.m. Adam didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. He could see the story written in her hunched shoulders, the bruises on her arms, the way she flinched every time the kettle whistled. Trauma wasn't always loud. Sometimes, it whispered through broken body language. He led her to the small guest room down the hall, but stopped at the door. He remembered that the bed in there was broken, a project he never got around to fixing. The only working bed was his. And without thinking twice, he said, "You can sleep in my room. I'll take the floor." Her eyes widened. "No, I can't. You've already done too much." He gently waved her off. "It's okay. You need it more than I do." That night, he laid a blanket on the floor and used a towel for a pillow. The hardwood was cold and unforgiving, but his heart was warm. And for the first time in weeks, Mia slept through the night. No panic, no fear of someone yelling or kicking her awake. Just rest. The next morning, she tried to leave quietly. Adam woke up just in time to see her trying to sneak out with the door half open. "Where are you going?" he asked, sitting up groggily. "I don't want to be a burden. You've already done more than anyone ever has." He stood and crossed the room. "You're not a burden. You're a person who deserves safety. You're welcome here, at least until you figure out your next steps." Mia broke down then. Not just tears, sobs. Years of being unwanted, invisible, and thrown away finally cracked open in the middle of this stranger's living room. Over the next few weeks, Adam helped her find her footing. He connected her with a shelter that specialized in transitional housing for young women. He called in a few favors with a social worker he knew. He even helped her apply for a job at a nearby coffee shop. Slowly, the color came back to Mia's cheeks. She smiled sometimes. She laughed once, and Adam nearly cried just hearing it. Before she moved out, she left a note on the bed. "Thank you for giving me more than a place to sleep. You gave me proof that kindness still exists. You gave me hope. I will never forget you." Years later, Mia stood behind the podium at a community center in Toronto, speaking to a room full of young women facing the same storm she once did. Her voice was stronger now. "I was once sleeping on buses. I had nowhere to go, nowhere to sleep, until someone gave me his bed and slept on the floor so I could have a chance. That small act of kindness changed my entire life." And in the crowd, Adam stood quietly in the back, hands in his coat pockets, eyes glassy with pride. The world didn't need grand gestures to change lives. Sometimes, all it took was a bed, a warm cup of tea, and the simple decision to say, "You're safe here."